I welcome you to the Church of Perpetual Life, and would like to also welcome everyone who's joining us online. Many people are joining us there through our live streaming today. Welcome to the event as well. We'd like to ask you to check out our YouTube channel and like us on Facebook, where you can find out more information about our church. And here at the Church of Perpetual Life, we follow the ideas and ideals of Nikolai Fedorovich Fedorov's beliefs that stem from the possibility of diverting human energies away from war and dissension towards measures of protecting mankind against natural disasters like floods and droughts and earthquakes, and to transform nature from a temporary enemy into an eternal friend. And since death is a natural phenomenon, it too could and should be overcome by knowledge and action. Our speaker today is a lawyer, author, and entrepreneur. Ms. Rothblatt graduated from UCLA with a combined law and MBA degree and began work in Washington, D.C., first in the field of communication satellite law and eventually in life sciences projects like the Human Genome Project. She is currently the founder and CEO of United Therapeutics Corporations and holds the distinction of being the highest paid female executive in the United States. She is the creator of GeoStar and Sirius Satellite Radio. She's also the author of the book Virtually Human, The Promise and Peril of Digital Immortality. And we have copies of those available for you after the sermons today. She's a graduate from the UCLA School of Law, UCLA Anderson School of Management and Barts, and the London School of Medicine and Dentistry. She has represented the television broadcast industry before the Federal Communications Commission, studied astronomy at the University of Maryland, and has been retained by NASA and the National Academy of Sciences. Ms. Rothblatt is responsible for launching several communication satellite companies, including the first nationwide vehicle location system, GeoStar, the first private international spacecom project, PanAmSat, the first global satellite radio network, World Space, and the first non-geostationary satellite-to-car broadcasting system, Sirius Satellite Radio. As an attorney, entrepreneur, Ms. Rothblatt was responsible for leading the effort to obtain worldwide approval via new international treaties. She has also led the International Bar Association's biopolitical project to develop a draft Universal Declaration on Human Genome and Human Rights for the United Nations. She was motivated in the late 1990s by her daughter being diagnosed with life-threatening pulmonary hypertension and entered the world of life sciences by first creating the PPH Cure Foundation and later founding a medical biotechnology company, which is United Therapeutics. She's appeared on CNBC, The Colbert Report, Howard Stern, and numerous magazines, including just recently on the cover of New York, I believe just last month. So today we are honored to have her here to tell us about the Terasem Movement that she created a decade ago. So let's please give a warm Perpetual Life welcome to Ms. Martine Rothblatt.
I'd like to meet the person that you were talking about, like all five of them or something. Well, thank you very much for that introduction. It's really not all as complicated as it sounds. Just here with my soulmate, Bina Aspen, and together we're just doing the best we can to do our part to create a better and happier life for everybody. And we're really excited to be here at the Church of Perpetual Life. Bina and I are huge fans of Bill Faloon and everything that he has done to create an ability for there to be joyful immortality for everybody. And we were so excited when he formed the Church of Perpetual Life together with all of you in the congregation. And even though we are also in Florida, it does take a few hours to get down here from where we live up in Melbourne and where the Terasem Movement Transreligion is headquartered. So we've been wanting for quite a while to be here at the services, and they're very, very happy we are here. Perhaps some of you may have been in attendance when some of our other Terasem joiners were present, such as Jason Zhu, I know was here not too long ago. So I didn't really know exactly what to expect today, and I certainly don't know exactly what are the interests of everybody in the online audience. But I think that the beliefs of Bina and I are really summed up by the church's name and by the church's logo. Perpetual life, that's what we believe in. That's our belief, and I don't think you could say it any more simply and directly than the Church of Perpetual Life. I can say that, you know, we are honored and that we are proud to attest, worship, follow, all of those kind of be devoted to the Church of Perpetual Life. So thank you so much for creating this. And then to see the beloved logo of, I'm not sure if this is unique to this particular church or shared together with Alcor, but it looks to me like the Alcor logo. I love that logo. Bina and I have been signed up with Alcor for well over a decade now. Recently this year, the first of our offspring also signed up with Alcor, which is really exciting because we love being with her right now, and so now we can like look forward to being with her for centuries and centuries, millennia to come. Super awesome to have a church founded specifically for Alcor. I mean, I think that's pretty much as good as it gets. What I'd like to talk about today, this being a church and it being under the rubric of religion, and usually, you know, when you think of religion and church, you kind of think of, you know, some flavor or another of Christianity. If it's Islam, you kind of think of a mosque. If it's Hindu, you kind of think of a temple. If it's Jewish, you kind of think of a synagogue. And at least to me, growing up in the States, if it's a church, you think of, you know, some version or flavor or another of Christianity. And I had the pleasure over the past several weeks to both get deep into some of the writings of a paleontologist Jesuit named Pierre Teilhard du Chardin, and also to meet with an outstanding biologist. I'm not exactly sure if she's a Jesuit, because I'm not exactly sure what the gender thing is on the Jesuits, but she's like, you know, a female Jesuit, if that's you know, if that's part of the story there, and a biologist and a professor of religion at Georgetown University named Ilya. And she has written an incredible book on the, edited a book of essays on the life of Teilhard. And I was able to have lunch with her, and we got deep into a discussion of a number of these things. She had inherited or acquired somehow a bunch of Teilhard's papers, which were never translated and were in their original form. And we are now in the process of digitizing all of those and translating all of those. So I'm pretty deep into the Teilhard project. I called it a trans-religious experience of Christianity because Teilhard was a Christian and was proud to be a Christian. Also realize that you're a Christian if you live an ethical way of life. Whether you're a believer or not believer, you are a Christian if you're leading an ethical way of life. So it's a really beautiful definition of Christianity. Well, let me start by talking about what is Terasem. So Terasem is a religious organization. It believes in bringing technology, modern technology, and evolving, advancing technology into all the different religions and spiritualities. In fact, it transcends all religions, and we think of Terasem as like the forest, and all the religions are the trees inside the forest. It is self-organizing, meaning we have what we call Terasem groups or Terasem collectives, organize themselves in different places. There's one organized in Washington, in Vermont, in Canada, Florida, San Francisco, different places. People are self-organizing Terasem organizations. And we basically are devoted to three things: diversity, unity, and joyful immortality. So that's what Terasem is all about. Now in Terasem, we have 4 basic tenets. And we have these on giant billboards in each of our Terasem. We call them ashrams. And in each of our Terasem ashrams are these giant boards. There are 4 basic tenets. Life is purposeful. Death is optional. God is technological. And love is essential. Now, when some people see these, they say, life is purposeful. Okay, I kind of get that. Death is optional. You know what? Of course, to this group, there's not going to be any what there. You know, obviously, death is optional. But to the lay public that's not so familiar with transhumanism and immortalism, that's a bit of a surprising concept. However, as I'll show in a moment, that Teilhard was already there and actually laid out how this is very consistent with all mainstream religions and Christianity. Now, where people really get most shocked about Terasem is our statement that God is technological. But this is where I was most excited in reading the works of Teilhard. As I'll show you in a moment, Teilhard saw that God is not like, you know, a man sitting up above with a beard. He saw that God is forward motion. God is forward, not above. God is ahead, not above. God is a relational process of evolution, technical evolution, biological evolution. So it's very, very consistent. And last but not least, that love is essential. Teilhard called love the glue that holds everything together. Terasem feels the same way. So with that quick introduction to Terasem, now let me talk a little about Teilhard. So his full name, Pierre Teilhard du Chardon of France. He was a scientist and a Jesuit. He specifically was a paleontologist. A couple of little anecdotes. He discovered a species of shark that had gone extinct hundreds of millions of years ago. And that species of shark is named after him because of his discovery. He was in on the digs for the Peking man in China and was part of that early discovery. He had many life experiences, and he had a real zest for life. I'll just share a couple of, I think, his more interesting life experiences. As a Jesuit, he was, you know, pretty much like on the pacifist orientation. However, you know, boom, in the middle of his life came World War I. And of course, being a pacifist does not mean that you're a coward or anything. It just means you don't want to like really kill other people. So he volunteered in World War I to be a litter carrier, a stretcher carrier. Now, if you've read anything about World War I, frankly, I could not really think of a more dangerous, scary occupation than to be a stretcher bearer in World War I. That was the war when people were in like different trenches, and anytime somebody climbed out of a trench and went running, person got like shot down, poison gas was all over the place. And this guy's like running out in the middle of the fields and picking up bodies and you know, running back with them to try to save them. I think that was also kind of a war where helmets were optional. So, I mean, it's just, you know, really astonishing the tremendous courage that Pierre Chardon had and survived that war and, of course, you know, saw a lot of terrible things. After World War I, he was assigned various places by the Jesuit hierarchy. And one of the places he was assigned was shortly before World War II was China. And he was allowed to do his paleontological thing there, working on the digs. And then World War II broke out. So he spent all of World War II in China, which I think is also, you know, very interesting kind of experience. He was, the next bullet I put there is that he was a prolific, what I call a rebel writer. I haven't seen that phrase used before for him, but I think that's most accurate. He wrote his views that God was the process of evolution, biological and technological process. It was a process. And that all of the notions of Christ and Christianity and God, if it was not reinterpreted in the context of modern science, it just didn't make any sense at all. I mean, this guy was a paleontologist. He discovered things that were hundreds of millions of years old. it was absurd to think that the world was 5,000 years old. I mean, that was like the most stupid thing he could imagine. So, he told people these notions of, love your neighbor, love each other, infinite love, what he called Christogenesis. These are beautiful and true concepts, but we've got to apply them not in the context of Greek science when the Bible was written, but in the context of modern science when we know about Darwinian evolution, we know about the expansion of the universe. And that's really all that Teilhard did. He just took the teachings of Christ and situated them in modern science. And, well, the Jesuits did not like that. The Catholic Church liked it less. And they banned him from publishing anything at all during his life, which is too bad because he was a prolific writer. He wrote a lot. Well, my loving soulmate here, Bina, always says, if you're blocked one way, find another way. Find another way. And Teilhard found another way. There was a technology. How many of you are familiar with something that existed before Xerox machines called mimeograph machines? How many of you got high on the mimeograph ink? Just joking. But it did have a pungent odor to it. So there was kind of like a pre-mimeograph technology that friends of Teilhard's would take, and they would run off, round and round and round, and print off hundreds of copies of his essays and distributed them all throughout the world. And this is how Teilhard became very well known. In fact, people wrote books attacking him before he was even allowed to publish his own writings in a book. That's how well known he became from these rebel, or you could call it underground writing. I'd call it maybe guerrilla writing. He got his views out there. Now, a good thing was he had a very devoted secretary, and he got the permission of his Jesuit hierarchy to give all of his papers to his secretary upon his bodily death. And she did a bang-up job over the next 10 years of getting them all published in French. He wrote them in French, she was French. And now if you take a look on Amazon or something, you'll see in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s, there's a huge stream of translated versions of all of his writings into English. And they continue to come out, like I mentioned, this lady, professor at Georgetown, who I met. Teilhard also coined a couple of really cool ideas. One of them was the noosphere. The noosphere is based on the Latin word for mind is nous, and he believed that we were building a collective consciousness that surrounded the whole world, just like the plants exuded oxygen to create a biosphere. Humans exude consciousness to create a noosphere. Somewhat similar to what Arthur C. Clarke described we were building with communications technology as the nervous system of humanity. He also coined this concept of the omega point. The omega point is what those of us who have read Ray Kurzweil's books would sort of call the singularity. He said what's happening is like all of this technology is continuing to develop and get more and more advanced until it ultimately converges into something that will trump the stupid physics of the cosmos and create a forever state in the cosmos. Well, this is something that Ray Kurzweil has written in The Age of Spiritual Machines, that written in The Singularity is Near. And Teilhard was writing the same thing, except he calls it the omega point. And he also says that this omega point, all of Christ's mind and vision of infinite love comes true, that there will be infinite love for all, no pain, no suffering, blah, 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 at this point, which does not exist yet and is 100% up to us with our technology and our capabilities and our efforts to create it. I looked at all of Teilhard's writings and I realized that there were kind of 4 tenets of Teilhard that very much track the 4 tenets of Terasem. First of all, we say Terasem, life is purposeful. Teilhard said the purpose of life is to unite the cosmos via science and love. That's the #1 point you'll get out of Teilhard. He believes that this will come to this omega point, Christogenesis, which is indistinguishable really from what Kurzweil would call the singularity. His second main tenet is that we are not physical beings. We are spiritual beings having a physical experience. So we should proceed as if limits did not exist. As Tellard said, if people can come up and invent new genes, go for it. Use them, play around with the DNA and the biology that we have. These are all toolkits for us to play with. We say in Terasem, God is technological. Tellard says God is an evolutionary process, forward, not upward. Our efforts are completing God. He loved technology, thought it was absolutely awesome. Technology is evolution continued by other means. So this whole effort that we have of using technology to create techno-immortality, this is God. We are God with what we are doing at Alcor and other efforts to create techno-immortality. Tellard said, love makes it all work. He envisioned love as a glue that holds together the more and more complex life forms that we see in the universe, holds together the larger and larger scales of organization and unity. Without love, everything falls apart. And with love, everything moves forward. So I've got like 4 slides expanding on each of these 4 tenets, and then I'll open up the session to any questions. So first, he calls God this directed evolutionary process. And this is, of course, where he got in trouble with the Jesuits. But you kind of really see this happening now. I recently spoke at a conference called the Singularity Conference, Human Soul and Machine. This is moving into the mainstream now. This was at a big museum in Baltimore. Tellard and other people who are following Tellard points out that atheism results from shackling God and faith to absurd notions that the world is 5,000 years old. There's this Church of Creation somewhere in, I think, Missouri, where there's like dinosaurs with Adam and Eve. And to Tellard, the whole Adam and Eve thing was a big joke. He's a paleontologist. He realized that there was absolutely no way that this is how people evolved. And he said, basically, we've got to grow up, okay, and stop teaching these ridiculous stories that no credible person is really going to believe, and accept evolution into mainstream religion. So he believed that the growing atheism of the 20th century was a result of the traditional religions being locked into a 2,000-year-old mindset and having kind of like, oh, we missed the Renaissance, we missed the Enlightenment, we missed the telescope, we missed everything. On the other hand, Tellard was concerned with anomie, or sort of the feeling of loneliness and disconnectedness, hopelessness that he saw arising in secular cultures. And he thought that this resulted from denying the power of human faith, belief, and spirituality. He believed that humans were the absolute most fantastic things in the entire universe. I mean, he would probably just say humans rock above everything else. Just incredible, our consciousness. In fact, he marveled at the fact that with humanity, he said, humanity is evolution that has become conscious of itself. That's how he defined humanity. That's such an astonishing thing. And he said, when you take humans and you say, well, you can't talk about faith, you can't talk about belief, you can't talk about spirituality, people are going to get very depressed and pessimistic. And he pointed out what scientists would do their experiment if they didn't have faith in the fact that they would get an outcome from their experiment. What person like ourselves would try to develop a cure for our daughter's fatal illness if we did not have belief, okay, that even though that there was no scientific cure today, we had belief that we can put together the pieces of science and technology and come up with a cure. And what person can really build an exciting, vibrant society if they're not willing to just go ahead and hug another person? You can't measure the feeling of warmth and love you get from hugging another person, but does that make it any less real? Not at all. In fact, there's nothing realer than love. So what Tellard said is, let's embrace human faith, let's embrace human faith, let's embrace human belief and spirituality, and let's like grow up and not tell these silly, Bible stories about, the ark and the apple, and there's no such thing as original sin. Animals do it, worms do it, people do it, okay? And So that was where he was coming from. And I put this last bullet here because I think it shows how powerful Teilhard was when he says, I'm quoting here from Eisenhower, pessimism never won any battle. Everything that I feel that Bina and I have accomplished, everything that you folks have accomplished, everything that Bill has accomplished with all the folks at Alcor is being accomplished because of faith and belief. Faith and belief are not anti-science. In fact, they are part of the momentum. They're the yin and the yang that go together with science that lets us move us more and more advanced, closer and closer to the singularity. So another aspect of Teilhard, biology is a toolkit and psychogenesis comes next. So this is the part of Teilhard which is like where we say death is optional. Teilhard said there's no problem synthesizing genes. I am extremely proud of the fact that our company, United Therapeutics, is now one of the largest investors in gene synthesis in the world, it's coming up with new DNAs through our partnership with Human Longevity, Inc. and Synthetic Genomics, Craig Venter's companies in San Diego. We just poured $50 million into coming up with new genes to modify the pig's genome so we can create an unlimited supply of replacement organs for human beings. That is, I think, totally cool, and Teilhard would also completely agree. The people who say, oh, you can't like mess with a human lifespan that's messing with God's plan, Teilhard would say, excuse my French, bullshit. God has no plan. There is no God sitting there who has a pre-arranged plan to be discovered. God is this process of evolution that all of us are doing, putting together to create a universe of maximum joy and total immortality. So these toolkits to synthesize genes, vaccines, medicines, cryonics, mind files, mindware, and mind clones, these are all different ways that we are becoming able to master our lifespans and master the universe. All of this is completely consistent with faith and religion. I really like this one too. I pause for a second every time I read the word Christogenesis, but we also have to realize that, you know, words have the meanings that we give to them. There was a point in time when, you know, queer was like a bad word. Now queer is becoming kind of a good word. Weird was a bad word. You know, now people are reclaiming weird. My friend Ralph Steadman put out his recent book, Proud to be Weird. So, you know, all kind of monster is in the process of being reclaiming when you combine different genes from different species together. That's kind of a monster. I mean, we are just right past Halloween, right? So, you know, it's not necessarily a bad thing. So Christogenesis was Teilhard's idea of infinite love applied to everybody throughout the entire universe. This is exactly Terasem's goal of diversity, unity, and joyful immortality. He just called it Christogenesis. And when we get rid of the fears and the risks to our lives, when, as Kurzweil says, we're able to use knowledge and information, nanotechnology, self-replicating nanotechnology, to control things like supernovas, to control things like gamma ray bursts, to control things like asteroids coming and hurtling into the earth and smashing everything, to control things like cancer and multiple sclerosis and Alzheimer's, then we will be creating in Teilhard's worldview Christogenesis. But it's up to us to do it. Whenever I look up the word God, it always comes with these words: omnipresent, omnipotent, omniscient, omnipotent. But what Terasem points out in our literature is it's obvious that there's nothing today that's omnipotent, omnipresent, omnipotent. If there were, you wouldn't have websites like whydoesgodhateparalyzedpeople.com. I mean, why do people get paralyzed? Why do people suffer from Ebola and from Alzheimer's? So it's up to us to build God. That's what Teilhard was saying. That's what Terasem is saying. This will take advanced, ethical, self-replicating nanotechnology, such as this O'Neill space colony. so we can take ourselves and not be limited to life just on the earth. So we are all God's collaborators in creation. That is a mantra from Tellard. Love is essential. According to Tellard, love is the most universal, the most tremendous, and the most mysterious of the cosmic forces. He wrote that we should love the earth from which we came, that we should love life, we should have a zest for life. He would be an immortalist in every way, and I'm personally 100% confident that A, we will be able to bring him back to life, and you can have 100 ethicists analyze that, and they'll say if there was anybody who wanted to be brought back to life but just didn't really know it was technically possible because of when his body failed, it would be Teilhard de Chardin. We bring him back to life, he'll be kissing every finger and our toes. Love each other. I already talked about how he felt that was the glue that holds all of us together. And most of all, love the future. Teilhard was a futurist, and he continuously said that the answer is in the future. The answer is in the future. Love the future. Bring it forward with what you do. So let me wrap up with this last slide and then entertain any questions. From Terasem, we say life is purposeful. Teilhard, agree, absolutely, right on. Terasem, death is optional. Teilhard didn't know that. He wasn't aware of that technology. He would certainly say go for it. And here at Alcor, we are definitely, positively going for it. God is technological. Teilhard would say very, very, very technological. Most of our evolution is now coming from technology. Even all of our biological evolution is technology, just using genes and DNA. And lastly, love is essential. Teilhard for sure. Thank you very much for listening to my monologue here for a while, and I'm happy to answer any questions you guys have. Yes?
Few questions. What languages did he speak or read other than French?
It's a good question, and I don't know for sure the answer. I'm pretty sure that he read and spoke Latin because he was trained as a Jesuit, and that was part of his ringing. And in his writings, he's got a lot of Latin phrases. He ended up, his body passed. I don't believe when the body dies, the person dies. I just say the body died, you know, in New York City. So it is likely that he spoke and read English, but I don't know that for a fact.
Could you expand on your comments on gene synthesis, where you are, where you hope to go, how it fits in with Terasem?
Yeah, the gene synthesis effort has a big head of steam. As mentioned, we invested $50 million in synthetic genomics efforts. We've invested a like amount of money in our own efforts within our own company, United Therapeutics. And our goal is that before the end of this decade, to be able to transplant a genetically modified pig lung into a person with end-stage lung disease and to bring that person safely back to health. And once having accomplished that with the lung, shortly thereafter, during the 2020s, we would replicate that for the heart, kidney, pancreas, liver, and we would scale it up so they weren't Apollo mission kind of one-offs, but instead production scale organs. And I believe it's very realistic that by the end of the 2020s, people will kind of scratch their head at the notion that there were like a waiting list for an organ and that most people died without even getting on the waiting list, much less getting an organ, because, well, why didn't you just order an organ, what we call a xenograft, xeno being like not from a human source, but it turns out from Mother Nature that the pig, of all the animals in the animal kingdom, has organs which are best size matched for humans, even better size matched than a chimpanzee. And unlike a chimpanzee, There's no ethical questions associated with pigs. We eat 100 million pigs a year in the U.S. And also, unlike chimpanzees, pigs have large litters of around 10 piglets within a very short gestation period of 3 to 4 months. So we are now using Craig Ventnor's technology to scan the pig genome at a level of resolution that has never been done before, actually at a finer level of resolution than even the human genome has been scanned. And I'm inserting in there different human genes. As of now, we have the world record for the longest duration of a pig heart, a genetically modified pig heart, in a baboon, which is the model before you put them into humans, with normal immunosuppression, just the same immunosuppression that any old transplant patient would have, which is over 1 year now. And these baboons are at the NIH. In fact, there's 4 of them. So we've done it repeatedly, one after another. And we also have the world record on the lung as well. So there are other companies also working in this field, and I love it. I mean, competition to keep us immortal, I can't have enough of it. But my goal is, just like we've got B-52s flying now with replacement parts and being piloted by grandchildren of the people who flew the first B-52s, that we will be able to keep bodies going for limitless lifespans with continual replacement parts using genetically engineered pigs. Now, we have a second phase of our business where we actually strip the pig organ of all of its living cells, so that all that is left is what's called the scaffold. This is the collagen structure of an organ about which all of our living tissue grows. Many of you may be aware, for example, that for many decades people have had pig valves as replacements. It's because those valves are stripped of all living cells, so there's no immune reaction. But the valve is very small, puck-shaped kind of thing. And we've now developed a technology that we could strip all the living cells off a complex thing like a lung, which if you look at it with no cells, it's super complex because literally got millions of little tiny arteries going to every alveoli. I mean, it's super, super spiderwebby. And then we take a person's own stem cells that we get from drawing some blood from them, or we take a skin biopsy and reprogram that to be a stem cell as an inducible pluripotent stem cell. And then grow those initially thousands into millions and then into billions of cells outside the body in what's called a hyperstack of plates. And then we infuse all of those cells of the person's own DNA and makeup over that scaffold that we originally got, that mold that we originally got from the pig. So that will be phase 2, and for the people being able to get those production organs, there'll be no need for any immunosuppressant at all, because the organ will be 100% matched to their own DNA, so they have like no immunosuppression whatsoever. And then finally, our third and final plan, and we're already working with 3D manufacturing companies, is to actually print these scaffolds. So we don't even need to harvest the scaffold from the pig to actually 3D print the scaffolds out of collagen or a similar material, and then again use your own stem cells to coat the scaffold. Amazingly, it takes only 6 to 8 weeks to go from like 1 million stem cells, which is not very many, to about 100 billion, which is about how many it takes to cover a full organ like a lung. So we're like totally focused on doing that. I'm positive that we will succeed. I have faith and belief because of science and technology that we will succeed. So our company is a publicly traded company. You could look it up on the internet. The ticker symbol is UTHR, like uniform, tango, hotel. And the company sells pharmaceuticals for the illness that our daughter was diagnosed with. Fortunately, she's now 30 years old and works in our company, is in charge of all digital presence and telepresence in our company, so she's doing very, very well. But unfortunately, many other people do not do as well as she does. And our medicines are essential to keeping people alive. We have 4 different medicines that are approved by the FDA. And we're on the verge of getting a 5th one approved. These medicines are paid for by the healthcare system, either Medicare or Obamacare, one or the other, whichever the person has. And then those revenues pay for us both to produce the medicines as well as to invest in ultimate cures for end-stage organ disease. And we have about 800 employees. Our main headquarters is in Silver Spring, Maryland, and our research and development headquarters is in Research Triangle Park, North Carolina, near Raleigh-Durham. Our insurance and reimbursement assistance operations are based in Melbourne, Florida, which is where I make my own personal home. And then we also have offices in Chertsey, United Kingdom, an inhaler manufacturing operation in Germany, and then a deep research operation going on in Nanjing Medical University in Nanjing, China. Well, thank you so much, Bill.
Spectacular, just spectacular. The similarities between Terasem and what Martine and Bina are doing are absolutely remarkable. Similarities between what they are doing and the Church of Perpetual Life and some of the side activities that we are involved in. A founding tenet of our church, the Church of Perpetual Life, is that the indefinite extension of the healthy human lifespan is not only desirable, but it's attainable, and it's what the Creator intended for humanity to accomplish. Very similar to what you just heard Martine talk about with Terasem. No one can rationally argue that illness is preferable to good health. I don't think anyone could rationally argue that involuntary death is preferable to vibrant life. An increasing number of people are refusing to accept the concept of involuntary death. These enlightened individuals are rebelling against the societal and scientific inertia that is robbing us of our youth, our health, and our very lives. Now, the Church of Perpetual Life was established to fill a void that exists in current society. Current mainstream society, that is. If you happen to be in Melbourne, you could join the Terasem Church. But there wasn't an organization down here that would provide the type of uniting that we need. So our mission, the Church of Perpetual Life, our fundamental mission is to unite like-minded individuals, to teach scientific rationality, and then accelerate the Creator's plan for mankind to develop the technologies that will result in the evolution into an environment of perpetual abundance. I like the word perpetual abundance, by the way, more than perpetual duration. Fedorov was a Russian, and when we translate his words, they don't always ring through in the English language exactly the way we'd like. So perpetual abundance to me sounds a lot better. But what we're going to do is go to the first slide. It's the news update, by the way, for the week, and this is what appeared on the front page of the Wall Street Journal this week. It's an interesting chart, and what that chart shows is the fact that from the year 2000, wasn't that long ago, to where we are today, that if we live to be the age of 65, we've got an extra 2 years added to our average lifespan. And there weren't any major breakthroughs that occurred during that period. And by the way, that only really extends up to 2012. That's the data that they gathered. They looked at the deaths of people over the age of 65 in the year 2000, and then they went up to year 2012. and they found that the men were living 2 years longer, the women 2.4 years longer. Just with no major breakthroughs in technology, just some better preventative medicine, people living healthier lifestyles, resulted in a rather significant extension of the average lifespan. And this is the kind of data that I'd like to enlighten our parishioners about, that we are living longer. Progress is occurring slowly without the types of breakthroughs that Martine and so many others right now are putting huge amounts of effort into. Because once these breakthroughs occur, well, we're going to see charts that go way beyond the chart. In other words, it'll go from 86.6 years, it's going to go into the hundreds of years. This is a chart that we show in this church almost every session, but it's to remind the parishioners where humanity was back in the year 1900. And I don't know what your perspective is as far as 1900, if that sounds like a long time ago to you or a short time ago. But I was born in 1954. And when I was born, I knew people who were alive in 1900. People who were born before 1900. And in my career as a funeral director, I filled out a lot of death certificates where I would type in their date of birth in the 1880s, 1890s, and that was not unusual at all in the 1970s. So 1900, at least to me, was not that long ago, and yet people were only living an average of about 47 years. That's all they were living on average, and there was a high infant mortality rate. We understand that, but they still were not living anywhere near as long as what we are today. And they were dying of diseases that we now have control of today. Tuberculosis, diarrhea, diphtheria, pneumonia. Those diseases we have control over for the most part. And the people who do die of pneumonia, still way too many, that's primarily caused by immune senescence. And what we're going to have in our March presentation is Dr. Diparai Maharaj. He's going to come down and tell us about immune senescence and ways that we can protect ourselves from this universally devastating condition that afflicts us if we live long enough. And that's why most people who die of pneumonia, they're elderly, and their immune systems have been devastated by the fact that their aging process has caused their immune cell production to decline and has enabled senile immune cells to linger and create chronic inflammatory conditions. So that March service, I hope all of you will attend and tell people who are concerned about their immune systems that we're going to put on a realistic presentation about what we can do now to help restore more youthful immune function to our aging bodies. And again, to remind people where we are today, and I feel a lot better being alive today, by the way, than when the founders of our country initiated the first documents of this country. They didn't live very long. A lot of people don't realize that the people who wrote the Declaration of Independence, their average age was only 44. That's all it was, 44 years of age. And they had terrible chronic health problems that made their life not a very enjoyable thing to endure. Problems like heartburn. They didn't have a real therapy for that. They just lived with heartburn. They lived with ingrown toenails. They lived with maybe some gallstones that weren't able to be removed in those days. Or they lived with chronic angina, chronic infections. A book called Revolutionary Medicine describes the health condition of the founding fathers of the United States, and their health was not good. They simply pushed through it. They lived with chronic health conditions that today we deal with. We have them treated and then they go away. We don't feel the pain anymore. But you realize we virtually doubled our average lifespan since the founding of this country. And that's a major accomplishment and something that is not fully appreciated. People just think, well, when you're 80 or 90, you're old. Well, that's how we think today. Back in the early days, if you made it to 60, that was an accomplishment. You were old at 60 and you suffered a lot of health problems. Okay, this will conclude our November 2nd service. The next service is going to be November 13th. We're going to have a speaker talking about ways to slow Alzheimer's disease and some other technologies that deal with neurological aging, which is a major problem for all of us. So if you know anyone who has a family member with that condition, this woman has gotten some remarkable clinical success from a lay standpoint. She's not a medical doctor, but she's used just her interpretation of the medical literature to get some very nice results. So that will be our November 13th event. And thank you all for coming, and enjoy the refreshments downstairs.